Welcome to Drinks and a Movie, the podcast pairing great films with great booze. Fair warning, spoilers up ahead. Now here's your host, Rudy Ruiz.
Hello everybody, we are back with the 007 series. We're going to be discussing Bond number 20. This is Die Another Day from 2002, the film that would be the 40th anniversary, right? We started in 1962 with Dr. No, so this is the 40th anniversary film, and I think the 50th anniversary of the first novel coming out. So yeah, we'll be getting into it. I might have a little bit of a hot take with this one, so brace yourselves, but here we go. Let's talk about the drink first. I'm going to be pairing this with the Michters Toasted Barrel Finish Rye. I mean, no particular reason to go with the movies, as you may have noticed at this point. I'm just kind of looking at my shelves and like, oh, what do I have that I haven't talked about yet? So this is one of them. Coming in at 107.6 proof, Michter's Toasted Barrel Rye. So their regular flagship rye is one of my all-time favorites. It makes a great old-fashioned. It's a great sipping rye. Widely available, you know, one of the first whiskeys that I fell in love with. And the Toasted Barrel Finish Rye, I haven't had this in a long time. It took me many years to finally acquire a bottle, but at a certain point in time, I would consider this my all-time favorite whiskey. I know the last time I've had this, it's kind of fallen out of grace for me, but yeah, let's see. It's been a minute. Oh man, I don't think I've done God, it just smells good, guys. I'm sorry, I can't even put my nose on it and on what exactly it is, but it's nice. It's just a comforting, cozy nose. I just wish it wasn't so hot in here where I'm recording, because this is definitely a nice winter pour, and I think in that way it goes well with the kind of icy ice palace vibe that we get out of this film. Yeah, but I'm only going for the taste. Here we go. Cheers. Yeah, I mean, just classic rye notes. It definitely has a sweetness to it. I feel like a little more caramel out of this one, maybe a little bit of vanilla, almost more of those bourbony notes on the back end. But of course, on the front and mid palate, like the black pepper and that bright spice you would get from a rye whiskey. Okay, I'm not saying it necessarily tastes like bourbon, you know, like don't get me mixed up like that, but you do get that vanilla and caramel kind of sweetness on the back, on the finish, which is really nice. Yeah, very bright on the front, really kind of lights up the palate. Goes down sweet, cinnamon, black pepper, caramel, vanilla. Yeah, I mean, that's a good one. Well, let's dig into it, everybody. 2002's Die Another Day.
Your freedom came at too high a price.
The mission was compromised. The same person who set me up then has just set me up again. So I'm going after him.
Tell me what you know of James Bond.
He'll light the fuse on any explosive situation.
Show me the diamonds.
Don't blow it all at once.
What happened to you? Bond.
And be a danger to himself and others.
I'm going to let him mix things up a little.
My friends call me Jinx.
My friends call me James Bond.
Wow, now there's a mouthful.
Who sent you?
Your mama.
Glad you could make it, Mr. Bond.
I see you don't chase dreams, you live them.
One of the virtues of never sleeping. I have to live my dreams.
Well, it seems you've become useful again.
Maybe it's time you let me get on with my job. So, this is where they keep the old relics, then, eh? Twist so, voila! You know, you're cleverer than you look.
Better than looking cleverer than you are.
James, be careful.
A nice palace can be such a treacherous place.
I take it Mr. Bond's been explaining his Big Bang theory.
Yeah, I think I got the thrust of it.
Must you touch everything?
Would you like to show me more?
Kill him.
Now! 1,000 meters and closing.
Put you back in third, eh?
Looks like we're going down together.
Not yet!
So this would be the last film to feature Pierce Brosnan playing the part of James Bond, and I've got to say, I never saw this one when it came out. I remember seeing Tomorrow Never Dies and World Is Not Enough. For whatever reason, I never saw this one. So this is my first time viewing this film, and I've always just heard that it was bad. I'd seen little bits and clips of it that never looked good or appealing. And I kind of came into this assuming, like, okay, this is probably going to be the worst of the whole series, like, most likely. And to my surprise, everybody, I know this might be blasphemous, but I didn't think it was that bad. I actually kind of dug it for the most part, okay? Well, and let's kind of go through it a little bit. So opening scene, I think was okay. I kind of like the action, you know, the him with the diamonds, the hoverboard stuff. What really kind of I like this now. It's in North Korea. That's something we haven't seen or done yet. I really need to turn on this fan. I'm sorry, it's just too hot. I know it's going to be a little noisy, but it's way too hot in here. So anyway, I think the opening was pretty entertaining. The one thing that I really bumped on, though, and we meet our kind of villains of the film, right? Like Colonel Moon, who's this guy in the beginning, and then Zhao, who gets like the diamond case blows up and they're like lodged and stuck in his face or whatever. Kind of interesting, but kind of weird, kind of dumb later on. But what I bumped on here was, we're in 2002 now. We already know that starting with GoldenEye, Tomorrow Never Dies, we're seeing hints of more CGI as that was coming up in that era. In this movie, they really lean into it a lot more. I mean, we really get the first taste of it in the gun barrel sequence, which they already switched to like a CGI in GoldenEye, I believe. But now in this one, when he fires off the gun, there's even like a bullet that comes towards the camera, like in the barrel, which is kind of weird. And when they have this hoverboard fight, or not hoverboard, they're fighting on these hovercrafts, this Colonel Moon and James Bond. And it took me back to some of the like comping they would do in the older films from the 60s. Like, if you remember, Matt and I talked about how in Goldfinger, one thing that really bothered us was in the opening scene when they're in Miami at that resort or whatever. In the wider shots, you see that they're all really there, but then when they cut to a close-up of Goldfinger or Bond or whatever, I don't remember exactly, you can tell that they were comped in, like they weren't actually at the place, even though in the wide shots you see that they were clearly shooting there. And this feels the same way, where like half of it is like, okay, you're here on the location doing the thing, but when we cut to the close-up, you're clearly in the green screen. And there's a weird digital edge that the whole movie has too, where I almost thought that maybe they shot this movie on digital cameras, even though I think it would have been 2001 or maybe the same year that George Lucas shot, I think it was Attack of the Clones on digital. It was the year before or this year, so it was still very new. Eventually, Robert Rodriguez would switch to digital for his movies too. And so I was thinking, okay, was this around that same time? And it wasn't. So it was still shot on film, but kind of surprising. You can just tell the way they were, color grading or the way they were incorporating visual effects. It just gives it this weird digital edge that, I don't know, it stood out to me. Again, I'm watching these movies every night. I'm basically binging this stuff. So we're seeing how the technology has evolved. And this one really kind of stood out in not the best way. And then we go into this, opening credit sequence where Bond gets caught. And what's neat is during the opening credit, like, I don't like the visual effects. I haven't liked them for any of this Pierce Brosnan era so far. But it's different in that it's kind of showing us the story of what's happening of him being caught and imprisoned and tortured. But, man, this is the worst song by far. Okay, Madonna, Die Another Day. It is awful. I don't even remember how it goes. I just remember it starting and listening and watching the credits, and I'm like, this is really bad. Like, most of the songs I feel like I've liked, there's a few that are just kind of whatever. They're not memorable. But this was straight up bad. Like, I never want to hear it again. It just really bothered me. So at least it helped, make the ranking a little easier for me. I'm pretty confident this is going to go in last place. Obviously, now I still have the 4 or 5 Daniel Craig movies to watch. So, we'll see. Maybe that'll change. But good Lord, man, this song is awful. And she even has a cameo later in the movie for some reason. I don't know why, but whatever. So then we jump to 14 months later, and, Bond they're going to execute him. But it turns out that they're trading him with that Zhao guy, and we get a weird dynamic where he's back at HQ, MI6, and like M doesn't like him. I don't know. I feel like they can be somewhat inconsistent with these movies on how she interacts with him. I don't know. It's like they didn't do a good job with the continuity, in my opinion. And I guess I do get it to the extent where she thinks that he gave information, even though he didn't. He gave zero information. But somebody leaked some info and it made him look bad. And we get another one of these instances where, he escapes and now they revoke his license to kill or whatever bullshit, or his 00 status. So now he's going rogue. And we've seen this before, but as the movie progresses, it doesn't amount to anything. Like, it's completely meaningless. Also, the fact that he's been in prison and tortured for a year plays no part in like the narrative for the rest of the movie, or how he acts or reacts, whatever, to different situations. It's as if it didn't happen. You would think that that would play a bigger part in his like emotional arc, the fact that he went through this ordeal for over a year and it doesn't mean anything. So another odd choice, in my opinion. I think they really could have done something interesting with the character, and then they chose not to. And then one thing with this movie, as I had mentioned, right? So this is the 40th anniversary, and there's a lot of references to older films. Like, I was watching a video where someone broke down a lot, and some of them are a stretch, but there's a lot. And I did notice it when I was watching, starting off with Halle Berry as Jinx, her introduction. It's quite different, but yet still reminiscent of Honey Rider and Dr. No. You know, in that movie, she kind of walks up the shore in the white bikini. In this one, we see in the binoculars, like, Halle Berry emerge from the water and walk up. It's, you know, it just, you can't help but think about that moment, because that's obviously iconic, the Honey Rider scene in Dr. No. And then I think my favorite kind of moment, though, of references, and there's some throughout. I remember there's one area he goes into that reminds me of Moonraker, when he gets to the temple and there's like the pool of water and just all this greenery and, you know, the women around. Like, there's a scene that kind of is reminiscent of that as well, when he goes into the new Q, which is played by John Cleese, who they introduced in the previous movie. You know, Desmond Llewellyn is gone now, and now we have John Cleese kind of taking up that part, which he's cool and he fits into it well. But it seems like they tried too much to make it seem like, oh, they have a history, the way they talk to each other. It's like he talks to Bond as if he is, you know, Major Boothroyd or Q. And they have all this history. And it's like, no, you don't have any history. You just met him in the last movie. You know what I mean? Like, so just weird. Like, don't try to pick it up and pretend like you're Q, because you're not. You weren't the one that, like, helped for all these years. But other than that, he does a good job. And when they are in this, they're in like another kind of secret base. They have a lot of, again, a bunch of references to older movies, which I love. They have that plane he uses, and I think it was the beginning of Octopussy. There's the like crocodile submarine thing from, I think that was also Octopussy. The shoe with the blade in it that Kleb had from Russia with Love, the jetpack, and probably a ton of other stuff I didn't even notice. Like, I would have to go through it frame by frame, and I'm sure there's all kinds of like little Easter eggs a spot in there. But I did like that, like the jetpack being the biggest kind of one. I got a kick out of that. I mean, I dug it. I appreciated that, you know, to keep up this continuity. I don't mind. Maybe some people are bothered by that, but I liked all the references. I like to be reminded that it is all the same person ultimately, you know? And yeah, as far as Halle Berry goes in this movie, I mean, she's all right. I feel like their dialogue together isn't very good. It's kind of, I mean, you know, they do the flirtatious thing, but it doesn't really hit the way it did in the older movies. It just doesn't feel as well written. Maybe a little too on the nose with some of the double entendres and whatnot. And as far as the story and the plot and the great master plan of the bad guy, you know, we find out, and I did call this, that we get introduced to a character named Gustav Graves, who, you know, pretty obviously I think is going to be the villain. And I did make the call that I was like, I bet you that the Colonel Moon guy from earlier in the movie is going to end up being him. You know, like he did some kind of facial surgery, which wouldn't be the first time they've done that. You know, we saw that in You Only Live Twice. And sure enough, that is the case. When he finds Zhao in this clinic and they're doing this full, I forgot what they called it exactly, but gene DNA therapy thing where they're going to turn him into like a white man, which is kind of weird. But then that lets us know that, okay, yeah, that's definitely the guy. And eventually they do reveal it. We have Rosamund Pike in this movie, and I guess her like theatrical debut. So that's interesting. I didn't know she was in this movie at all. She ends up, you know, being a double agent where you think she's with the bad guy, but then, turns out she works for MI6, but turns out she's with the bad guy. So, you know, another kind of double agent situation. Yeah, and again, as far as story goes, the master plan, sorry, I got kind of sidetracked because I have a distraction in front of me right now, but it almost feels a little bit like a throwback to the older films with this master. Like, he's got this big satellite, and I don't remember how the diamonds, there's this whole thing about all these diamonds, and he fake found diamonds in Iceland or something, makes this big ice palace. I don't know. This movie should have been called Diamonds Are Forever with all the diamond references and stuff. But he's got this big satellite with this mirror shit on it that's going to like harness the power of the sun. And so he can basically use the energy of the sun as like a concentrated beam of energy. And it reminds me of, I think, wasn't that what Scaramanga was doing in Man with the Golden Gun? It was a similar kind of weapon, now that I think about it. I almost forgot about that. Same kind of thing, just like an updated idea of that. So that's interesting. And I mean, where I liked this movie, again, surprisingly, is because it did feel like, I don't know, it felt a little more like the older Roger Moore era ones. Like some of the humor, I think Pierce Brosnan is like fully into the role now. But yeah, something about it, just like the story beats, and maybe it's all the references and I just don't even realize it. Maybe there's more that are more subtle than I think. But it reminded me kind of like the good old days, you know, and there is a lot of silly stuff in this movie. We get an Aston Martin again. This time it can turn invisible, which is fine. And I think the car chase on the ice in this is like one of the best we've had so far, if I'm being honest. I thought it was a pretty cool sequence. And yeah, like, I don't know, maybe I got to watch it again. But for the most part, like I said, I didn't think this was the worst movie ever. I think it hit a lot of the beats that I wanted to see. And to be completely honest, though, the biggest weakness it has, and I figured this would be the case, is the CGI. And I was watching an interview with the director and some of the other filmmakers where they're talking about how, again, it's 2002, right? Like they want to push it. They want to use that. James Bond has been known for this cool stunt work and keeping all this stuff real and practical. And now we're going to change it and implement, you know, CGI technology. And good Lord, is it dated, you guys. It's really bad, and that is what takes the movie down. Maybe this is blasphemy. As it stands right now, when I do my ranking of all the movies, I probably will not put this in last place, but if I do, it's going to be because the CGI and the terrible song. Like, that's the stuff that's going to weigh it down. But it gets really bad, and you see it early on. Again, I bumped on the hovercraft, you know, fight scene in the beginning when they're obviously green screened in, and it pulled me out immediately. I'm like, oh, well, this isn't... It's already not as cool or not as exciting because I know it's not real. And just a ton of bad CG throughout, especially as soon as they get to the ice palace, which I think the design is, again, it's really silly, but it kind of reminds me of the good old days, like I said, and I was missing that, to be honest. But like the establishing shots and the satellite and all that CG is horrible. When they're on the plane, looks really bad. And of course, probably the most notorious scene, I'm going to assume, in the whole entire series, for me so far, the absolute worst moment in the 20 movies I've seen, when there's that like tsunami because they're trying to kill him with the laser, and he like jerry rigs a little, you know, I don't know, water ski, and he's got the parachute from that little whatever the hell he was in, and he's like surfing through the big tsunami waves, and there's like icebergs and shit. You'll know, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about, and oh my God, that was incredibly bad. And I bet you that was probably dated the moment the movie came out, or at least like the next year. I mean, it looks so bad. It reminds me of that weird surfing moment in John Carpenter's Escape from LA, and that was 1997. This looked no better than that. Yeah, that moment, for sure, the worst so far. You know, we get a little laser scene, obviously kind of a reference to Goldfinger, but this time it's Jinx. You know, Halle Berry's on the table and the laser's going to get her. And they have this fight, Bond and this other henchman guy with the lasers going by, but somehow it just doesn't feel that exciting. And I thought the fight choreography was pretty bad. Okay, maybe this movie will get last place. But the fight choreography in that moment was pretty bad. It just didn't look good. So all the tension is kind of sapped out of it. The tension with her even being on the laser table in the beginning, like, just wasn't there. So, yeah, I don't know. But again, that car chase was pretty dope. Like, I liked all that, where the bad guy, the Zhao car, also has rockets and gadgets. So you're seeing them kind of go toe-to-toe in their vehicles. And again, it's the Aston Martin, so that's cool to see that. But yeah, then we get the finale where they get on the plane. I don't even remember how they get onto the plane, to be honest. I completely forgot. But there's this moment that is supposed to be, I guess, like, emotional or meaningful, where Colonel Moon, who's now, you know, the Gustav Graves guy, turns around and he's like face to face with his father, and he reveals to his father that it's him and his son's not dead. And it feels like it was supposed to be a big moment, but it just came across really silly because then Graves is wearing this stupid mechanical suit where he's controlling, like he can electrocute people, and he's also controlling the, what do you call it? The Icarus. That's what they call the little laser satellite thing. And it just looks really ridiculous. So it didn't work. And also prior to him having the full suit, he's got like the glove on, and it looks like the Nintendo Power Glove from the 90s, and he's like pressing the buttons. He can electrocute people and shit. And it looks like a power glove. So that was not good. That was pretty dumb as well. And yeah, I mean, we get this kind of final climax on the plane. You know, it's Bond versus him. And of course, I think Bond by accident or someone else shoots out the glass. So then people start getting sucked out of the plane. And that felt like a reference to Goldfinger. But I think it would have been a better reference if they had the guns out there and Bond did the same thing where he tells them like, hey, don't shoot any guns in here. Otherwise, we're going to get sucked out of this plane. But instead, that doesn't happen. It's like you would think he would bring that up again. And we do get, and it's a shame that we did not get this in the last movie. So I didn't mention that Jinx, Halle Berry, is another kind of agent. And we've seen this before. You know, Bond's got to partner up with some agent. She's from the U.S. And her boss is Michael Madsen. He's in this movie, which I thought was kind of neat, but then he doesn't do much. So whatever. But she gets to fight one of the other people, in this case Rosamund Pike, who's like a fencing champion. So they have a fight on the plane, and I thought that was kind of a funny moment because when they confront each other, Rosamund Pike comes up and all of a sudden she's in like this sexy outfit that doesn't make any sense. It kind of reminds, it's like the earlier movies when, you know, one of the girls gets caught and then you see them and they're like in some new really sexy costume for some reason. So it's like that's like not tactical by any means. But they do get a fight scene, and it's decent, but you can tell when the stunt people are in, you know, and they edit it to look a certain way. And it wasn't as interesting to me because in Tomorrow Never Dies, I was just talking about how, like, damn, we should have seen Michelle Yeoh fight Stamper, the, like, big henchman guy, but we didn't. But now we get it in this movie, but it's with someone who's not actually a trained fighter like Michelle Yeoh was, where we could have seen her do the stunts and all the cool stuff. But in this, we don't. It's Halle Berry, so they're editing it a very specific way to hide that it's Halle Berry and Rosamund Pike. So I just wish they did that in Tomorrow Never Dies and not this movie. But all in all, I mean, she's a decent enough character. She's fine. I mean, you know. But yeah, I mean, they end up saving the day. You know, we get the good little one-liners from Bond, and there is a moment played for laughs where I forgot to mention that earlier in the film. Bond, we see him in his office, which I don't think we've seen since Majesty's, so that was interesting. And he goes outside and you see that Moneypenny and other people were dead, and I was like, there's no way they just killed them off. But it turns out he was doing a virtual reality training exercise. And so there's a moment here at the end where, and I did think this was actually kind of funny, where Moneypenny and him start like making out. But then it turns out she is wearing the little goggles, the virtual reality thing, and the John Cleese catches her. I thought that was actually kind of funny, but yeah, whatever. So I gotta say, all in all, I mean, I guess as I'm talking about it out loud, it does sound pretty bad, and it is. Like, I mean, there's a lot of silliness in this movie, but we've had that from the get-go. So I think I don't mind a lot of it, and it almost was a breath of fresh air in that it reminded me of some of those older films, and I actually really dig that. You know, I think that's the kind of Bond stuff that I like when it doesn't take itself too seriously, you know. One other thing that really bothered me in this movie, though, and this is a sign of the times, is the director does a lot of speed ramping. So what that is where they'll transition into a scene and it'll be playing in fast motion and then like ramp down into normal speed. So they do a lot of transitions like that, and I just hate it. Like, speed ramping can be cool, but not for movies like this. And it's just like a trend, and it dates it, you know, because then you can see like, oh yeah, that's when that was like popular for people to do, for filmmakers to do, and it just makes it feel like it was part of everything else, and not, you know, trend following in the way of like genres, like, you know, like Star Wars, sci-fi, or blaxploitation, or martial arts, or 80s action. It's very much like trending and just some technical shit that's not cool for me anyway. Yeah, God, good Lord. Really bad song, really bad CGI. But I mean, otherwise, everybody, again, I didn't think it was horrible. It wasn't. I mean, I might even like this one more than Tomorrow Never Dies, if I'm being completely honest. Maybe even more than World's Not Enough. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to. It's getting tough. I'm gonna have to maybe watch a couple of the other movies again before I start making my ranking, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, I would be curious to hear from you. Like, have any of you who've seen this, do you think it's the worst Bond movie of all? Or do you think, like, if you watch it again and you can forgive some of the terrible CGI as far as just a fun Bond movie, like entertaining Bond movie, just not taking it too seriously, do you think it's okay? You know, I actually had in another bonus episode I did on the 1967 Casino Royale, I was like, oh, this is by far the worst. And someone said No Time to Die is the worst one. So you never know. But it's interesting. Again, here we are. We've made it pretty far, guys. We've gotten through the 90s, the early 2000s. We're 40 years in. We are now in the final era as of now, because James Bond will return, hopefully. But we will now be entering the Daniel Craig era, 2006's Casino Royale, where, if I remember correctly, they did kind of reboot the whole series, where it doesn't have continuity with the original films. So this will be interesting. We've made it. Oh, man, that just bums me out, though. It really bums me out that this was the way Pierce Brosnan went out. And this was like the 40th anniversary one. Like, imagine if GoldenEye was the 40th anniversary one, or if Casino Royale was the 40th anniversary one. Like, it's too bad that one that is widely considered the worst was like fit that section. Yeah, kind of a shame. And that's the last one he got to do. Well, shit, man. Anyway, that's a wrap on this one. Leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts. And we'll see you next time for Casino Royale. Cheers.